Sorry for no stream today. It's just ever since they closed USAID, I've had to pick up extra shifts at other deep state programs. I keep trying to start recording and Ruben just keeps screaming. He wants my attention. I keep telling him I've got a job. It's how his cat food gets in the house, but he doesn't appreciate the process. Hold on. There he is. He doesn't get it. So if you haven't been paying attention, which I can't really blame you for, news kind of races a mile a minute these days. We have a new Surgeon General to be. Probably going to get through, just like everything else bad that's happening in this country. It's probably going to happen. Trump's Surgeon General pick praised unproven psychedelic therapy, said mushrooms helped her find love. So a couple of things here. The new Surgeon General pick is a freak, hippie, woo-woo, spiritual wellness kind of person. The kind of person who would have been unambiguously left-coded up until about 10 years ago. And I don't really care for the framing of this article because the promotion of the use of psychedelics is by far like the least objectionable thing. Our next Surgeon General is going to be like the kind of person who sells healing crystals on Etsy and swears they'll cure your cancer. Okay? You know that this might be a deep cut for some of you. You know that one girl with the white girl with the dreads who said like she used to do cocaine and her kidney disease was healed by spiritual wellness? She's real grungy looking, looks like she'd smell like shit, that like party goer type. You know what I'm talking about? That's our new Surgeon General, more or less. I'm told, type shit. Yeah, it's pretty weird. Anyway, the focusing here on psychedelics is pretty wild because I don't care if people use psilocybin. I guess it's not really of interest to me at all. It's the least interesting thing about her. What they're referring to here is like an excerpt from a book that she wrote where she talked about the stuff she did to find love. Actually, I've got a little here. We got a bullet point list right here that I pulled off Twitter because I'm too lazy to do real journalism. Ayo, at least he's honest. What did she do to find love? And why is this interesting? Why is this politically relevant? Well, stick with me for a sec. I set up a small meditation shrine in my house and prayed to photos of my ancestors asking for support on my personal journey and wrote mantras and manifestations on small pieces of paper and tucked them around the shrine. I went to weekly group meditations and spiritual lectures at Self-Realization Fellowship in order to tune in with spirit, capital S, spirit. I worked with a spiritual medium who helped me try to connect with my spirit guides for support and guidance. I did full moon ceremonies with grounded, powerful women where we called in abundance and let go of... Again, like, keep in mind, this is the Trump administration's pick for the Surgeon General. Does this not seem lefty-coded? I don't think it does, but does it not, like, to you? There's a shift here, okay? There's a paradigm shift. And amplified each other's dreams. I hiked alone and talked, literally out loud, to the trees, letting them know I was ready for partnership and asked them if I could help. Like, one thing in particular that, might seem some weird to people who believe that anyone believes anything, I guess, is the fact that this is unambiguously paganism. You'd think the Christians in the Republican camp would be furious with this, outright rejection of Christendom, right? Like, very explicit. They'd burn you at the stake for this, a few hundred years ago, but of course nobody cares. I made wishes on heads-up pennies. I made wishes when the clock struck 11:11. I made wishes on the first stars I saw in the night. I pursued visualization techniques like the Silva method that helped me see my visions for the future. I did plant medicine experiences, trusted guides, wrote extensively about my experience and insights. Then you've got like the little mushroom emoji. So she did psilocybin. Okay, gotcha. And that's what the AP News article is focusing on. Oh, she did an illegal drug. I don't care. Honestly, it's the least objectionable thing there. So when did this become right-wing coded? Because I don't know if you've noticed, but like a seismic shift happened sometime in the past decade or so. All of these signifiers of left politic, right? Like being vaccine hesitant, being kind of hippie nature woo-woo, a lot of these ended up shifting over to the right. Seriously, do a traipse on TikTok. Try to find some health and wellness videos where skinny white women explain to you how they wear all natural fibers or something. Tell me if you get a I voted for Kamala Harris vibe off those videos. No, you won't. Fascists have always been drawn to woo, right? Like Nazi esotericism isn't it's not a new thing, and I've talked about this a million times before. I just think it's interesting how far we've committed to this bit, right? You have like a weird consistent alliance between these like straight-laced neocon Republican types who just want to lower taxes for the wealthy, and these like freak neo-Nazis who have taken over the administration, who you know think it's epic and based and red-pilled when you cut US aid because we're not spending $5 to keep 1 million kids of dying from AIDS. And apparently, like these spiritual wellness types, you'd think would be, in addition to just being generally left-leaning, horrified by the callousness towards life represented by this administration, but they're not. You know, I've always argued this, and I apologize if this comes across as anti-woman, because people say that, oh, when you're attacking horoscopes, you're attacking women. Then I'm attacking women. Horoscopes, astrology, you can have fun with these things if you want, but esotericism has always been ideologically really vulnerable to fascist argumentation. And the reason for that is because the esoteric types, along with the fascists, they can't take no for an answer. What do I mean by that? Well, I apologize for being a Reddit atheist about this, but I'm sorry, if ever there was a time for Reddit atheism, it's now. If you're a rationalist, I mean, if you are if you're like you believe what is rigorously tested, if you're following, you know, I guess it's kind of gay to say it, but like the scientific method and how you approach the world, which all of us do in some ways and all of us don't do in some ways. I'm not saying anyone's innately better than anyone else. That's the purview of the people who believe in astrology. But if you buy into that, right, sometimes you just come across dead ends. Sometimes, no matter how hard you try, you can't square the circle. 2 + 2 just don't equal 5. You know, you can arrive at definite no's. You can concretely disprove things. But the goal of fascism politically is to do what esotericism does spiritually, which is allow for an infinite number of ambiguous, always potentially correct options, avenues. Oh, this doesn't work. Well, maybe the moon cycle wasn't in its right phase. Well, this doesn't work. Well, you didn't try it, you know, with a person from the right, you know, astrological sign. This didn't work. Well, you just approached it with a bad attitude. You know, by being unscientific in the way they approach the world, they leave the door open to, well, anti-empirical thought. You know what I mean? Like, there's never a dead end. A fascist will never look at a program engaged in by dear leader and be like, oh yeah, I guess that just doesn't work. That's a huge part of their program. It's not just about wanting bad things. It's a fundamental ideological unwillingness to come to terms with reality when said things do harm or even don't do harm. Reality means nothing to them. It's all a rhetorical game. It's a thing to play with. It's a big playground that they get to dance in, and they only get to do this when they have all the political power to do so, because when you have all the power, it doesn't necessarily matter whether you're right or wrong, only whether you say you're right or wrong. You have the means to absorb the impact of being wrong. If you're not in power, you don't necessarily have that authority, right? If you're not in power, you're held more to account. But the less accountability you have placed on you, the more you can get away with anti-empirical thinking, which is exactly how spiritualism and mysticism work, because, you know, there's no accountability there, right? Nobody's out there doing peer-reviewed articles on the, you know, the efficacy of witchcraft or whatever. It just doesn't work. I guess what I'm getting at here is that it's a very, listen, I'm not saying you're a Nazi if you believe in horoscopes, okay? I'm not. I'm just saying that this is a line of thinking that's been co-opted. I don't think everyone who believes in those things is necessarily right-leaning. What I mean to say is that there are elements of fascist thinking that are extremely attractive to some people who fall in with this hippie woo, nothing means anything, anything means nothing, you know, irrational bullshit, right? It's very attractive to some of them because you're offering them a worldview. You're offering them like a political doctrine that is as flexible as their spiritual one, you know? Spiritual people probably aren't going to be attracted to, like, I don't know, a highly empirical, highly falsifiable political doctrine where you just arrive at concrete yeses and nos that can be backed up and affirmed by empirical evidence. And once that's done, it's done. And there's nothing really more to say about it. That doesn't gel with their line of thinking. That's why I advocate for kind of like a holistic, I don't know, it's not cleansing, I guess, but like try to keep your thought processes on the up and up. No one's perfect about it, you know, but it does leave you open to some really bad arguments if you fall into these traps. Like I said, I don't give a shit about the psilocybin bit. Our U.S. drug policy is insane. If anything, I think the fact that AP News is focusing on that rather than the fact that the next Surgeon General is going to be like a psychotic, anti-empiricist, anti-science freak, I think that's the bigger deal, in my opinion. Personally, I think that's a bigger deal. But you know, what do I don't write for AP News. Thank God. I'd probably be a less interesting person. You get me, right? Anyway, look forward to a bunch of hippie woo statements. By the way, this is RFK Jr. like fully in line with all of this, by the way, because he's a bridge to this, you know? In RFK Jr., you see this perfect bridge of like, by ignoring the science, we can use pseudoscientific, pseudo-medical statements as a bridge to fascism, you know? More people are testing positive for autism. Well, this is a sign of like widespread social and moral decay, which needs to be, you know, attacked from every angle. How do we attack from every angle? I don't know. Probably in some way that enriches big pharma. Maybe. Yeah, probably. Whatever works. You get me. You understand what I'm on about. It's not good. Sorry, I find it interesting. I don't know. We've been reacting so much to the news lately because every day it's 50 million new things, just an onslaught, this beleaguering onslaught. But it's important to take a step back every once in a while and try to identify, like, these things aren't erroneous, right? They're not aberrant. They're not coincidences. There are patterns to these thought processes, to these behaviors, right? It's not a coincidence that basically every single neoconservative in America effortlessly fell into fascism, right? They just like, oh, it's convenient for us to be fascist now. Well, we get to continue prioritizing our real goal, which is enriching corporations. So I don't really care. That's how fascism works every goddamn time, right? I mean, it's basically, listen, okay? Find me a couple of good examples of fascism being a 100% working class driven movement with no bourgeois involvement whatsoever, and the business class, out of a rational self-interest, fights back against the fascists. Has it happened somewhere? I don't know. When I make bold claims like this, usually yes, because somebody finds a way to argue against me. But then I say to them, oh, I think you're ignoring the fact that if you look at it more closely, there was bourgeois involvement because those proletarians were actually funded by an exterior source. Blah, 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 blah. Sorry, I'm shadowboxing with chat. I don't know why. When chat's not here, I create chat. If there was no chat, I would have to invent one. That's why we need to have chat, because otherwise I just look like a psychopath. You get me. You get me. It's pretty grim. Any attack on truth is an attack from the right. They are ideologically anti-truth. The left can and has, as a whole, said things that are untrue, but untruth as a doctrine belongs to the right. Always.